wanted to speak a little bit about deception and deceiving spirits because I know the days are evil and the Lord talks about being cautious to make sure that you're not listening to the wrong spirits because there are, the days are evil. There's a lot of rebellious people in the world. So that being said, I often wonder if people see the things I see because when you're walking in the spirit, I'm not saying I don't have righteous indignation. The Lord was angry with the wicked every day. So anybody that's being vindictive or cunning in their behaviors is going to upset anybody. That's a God-given emotion that I think at the cross we handle a little differently, but I call out sinners. I call out someone's deception when I see it. When you watch people's patterns of behavior, yes, righteousness and meek is the requirement, but also if someone sins against you to tell them. I mean, if you're going to correct someone's behavior or reprimand them like the Lord would, you would have to spare the rod, spoil the child. So there comes a point where you're like, when you start noticing people's patterns of behavior or their malbehavior, whatever the case may be, we know them by their fruit. Eventually, you have to call that out. And this is why I always say God's not the author of confusion. If they're using profanity, if they're doing little things that, would upset, the Lord's never going to use someone in sin to correct you out of sin. He's not going to have a comparison spirit or a mockery spirit operative where people are provoking you, provocation. And like I say, maybe not admitting to it when you address them with that. Like no accountability for their behavior. And then when you address them, what's wrong with, they only notice your reaction, not their behavior that caused it. That's like what the Bible would call, I guess I'd say narcissism, but that's traits of the devil. They never are accountable for their behavior or the things they're doing. I'm not saying that we should react in anger, but there is a difference between rebellion and righteous indignation. When someone provokes you and provokes you and provokes you and does things, you would have to address it. You would have to, because they're not going to stop their behavior unless they know that you're aware of it. Whether they admit it or not, I guess they're throwing themselves into condemnation. The Lord searches the reins, motives of man. But, this is where I think, man, they think I don't know, or they think I don't know they're lying, or they're being deceptive. Because when you have the Holy Spirit in you, it warns you, you have a sound mind, you see it. That's not because I have I'm not throwing people into condemnation. The truth is the truth. If I become the enemy because I preach the truth, the Lord would never require you to be cunning and destroy other people around you or cause confusion. Like they say, an evil person is not happy unless they're causing division or strife. So sometimes the enemy will send people in your life to torment you. I truly believe this because since I've been at this cross, I face spiritual attacks every day. Every day, because not everybody's at this cross. And I believe people are going under strong delusion, believing a lie. Maybe some people have lived this lie for a very long time. And that because of their trauma, pain, or past experiences or false upbringing, that was his power over their life because they didn't know in their weaknesses what their strengths could be. And that's why I always say the enemy will use all these things, your past burdens, your past failures, your past disappointments. And he, like they say, he accuses you before the throne of God every day. He accuse of the brethren. He will accuse you. When you're trying to break free out of his kingdom, he will sit there and annihilate you with your past. You're no good. You're not worthy. No one loves you. I mean, tell you all these things to belittle, degrade, and demean you. And people that live in his territory do the same thing. If unhappy people do unhappy things, misery seeks company. So, I see this, and even when you try to address it with them, sometimes they'll fail to admit any of it because they're not ready to be accountable for their behavior. They're just not ready. But I'll tell you this, the Lord would never require you to do that to yourself and to other people. Why would the Lord say, I give you life now, I'm going to go live it for the lake of fire. Go create the hell you're going to go live in. And if you're promoting the evil in this world, the Lord's destroying sin and sinners out of this earth. Rebellion is a sin of witchcraft. If you're rebellious, Like when you have a person that you know is constantly the tongue of the crafty, even the actions of the crafty. If their tongue is crafty, their mind is crafty. The desires of a man's heart controls his thoughts, and then you know them by their fruit. I've seen so much strange behavior in these last days, and the things that people talk about, as I've said before, like induced conversations. I once said, I felt like it was induced conversations. Well, you got to remember, if Babylon has fallen and become the habitation of devils and unclean spirits, devils do devilish things. You can't anticipate more out of somebody when they have a bad spirit in them. I've done deliverance and I have spiritual discernment. Some people allow these spirits come in because of their upbringing, maybe not a healthy environment. Um, but I'm besides myself sometimes, where I think, wow, why would somebody sit there and do that repetitively? Just like I call them tormenting spirits, where they just torment you. I'm here to bring people back to the Lord, but I think you have to address sin has to be acknowledged for it to be addressed. I think we need to acknowledge or address our bad behavior, our rebellious nature, because the Lord didn't say, "I give you life, now go be a toxin to everything that you encounter." Show your kids how to live under. They'll shut not past that seed of fire. Show your kids how to live in rebellion too, because they're becoming what you show them. You got to be an accountable parent. I mean, so when you start breaking free out of the curse, I've had people literally say some weird, strange things to me, and I'm not in control of anybody's actions, thoughts, or behaviors. Every soul is accountable for its own inequity. I don't have power over your thoughts or your ways or what you believe or disbelieve. Nobody has that power over anybody's vessel. You can't blame other people for your demise. That's why the Bible is available to us all. Sanctification is available to us all, but that's what it requires. You can't say, well, I read this, I did this, I know the Bible, I know who the Lord is. The Lord says you say you love him with your lips, but your hearts and lives, your actions, your deeds are far from him. You don't go around being manipulative or cunning or vindictive to people. Envy, jealousy, causing division, strife, talking about painful things, but that you speak life, not death. Life and death is in the power of the tongue, and the tongue is the most evilest member of the body. I don't use profanity. If I can do it, if the Lord can redeem me from that kingdom, he can for anybody. I don't use profanity. I don't like to backbite or belittle people, but I do. The Lord would speak of people when he was addressing certain scenarios, because we have to have people to confide in. Sometimes it's not always meant to be a gossip. Sometimes it's meant to be like, these behaviors are not conclusive to the image of Christ and this upbringing or this family lineage, or maybe they have these patterns of behavior because they've suffered these formalities or negative attention, or because I try to look through the eyes of Jesus, and because he told me to get a seal, he showed me the truth 15 years ago. That's why it says if it were possible, you can deceive. So I speak of demonic networks because I know when they're at play. If two people are talking about somebody, that's a demonic network. If somebody's complaining, chastising someone, or not, like say someone sins against you, tell them. But if someone's doing things that are cunning to you, and you've addressed them overly and overly, those are the people you just have to, pray for them, but stay away from them, because they're not ready to be a better person. And if bad company corrupts good morale, unequally yoked. You can't drink the cup of devils and drink the cup of the Lord. If someone really went under delusion and believed that they would have to willfully sin to gain something, if you have to sin to get something, it's a curse, not a blessing, because sinners will be removed off this land. So you're self-deceived. You are self-deceived. You think that you can live in sin and the Lord's not going to find that out. He's omnipotent, omnipresent. He sees all things. He's the creator of all things. God knows the motives of man. And if you're doing that, you're teaching your children how to live that way. Just like the rich man of Lazarus, he realized what he had done to his whole family. Look at all these people. Prophecy's taking place. If you disbelieve or believe, it's not going to stop the prophetic time clock. What's happening in Jerusalem, that's the timeline for prophecy, is part of prophecy. What's going to determine your belief or disbelief is where you'll spend eternity. I'm staying holy. I get upset and righteous indignation because I know most of this world is believing a lie. Those who try to save their life will lose it. He said some of us won't taste death till the coming of the Lord. This is the time for that to occur. But some, it's not going to be a good thing. It's going to be too late when they realize they've been duped, or they went under strong delusion and believed a lie, or they follow the ways of Cain, which was a Balaam. Cain was marked for death. He had murderous spirit, an envious spirit, a jealousy spirit. He had all those. The Lord knew you will remove yourself. You don't have to envy a wicked person. Satan's kingdom will destroy itself. You don't have to do anything to that kingdom of darkness. They live in the dark. People of the dark do dark things. People in sin, the wages of sin is death. The Lord's going to remove them. They're putting their Holy Spirit to sleep. They're actively dying. Let the dead bury their dead. People live in sin, and then they leave behind all their pain and trauma for everybody else to deal with. The next generation, so to speak. Because you see people that are in oppressed lifestyles, addictions, domestic violence, abuse, emotional, mental. They put everybody in despair. That they're poisoned to everything they touch. And then they end up dying that way, and the people behind them suffer the pain from their formalities or adversities, and they jump in the grave with them, and they handle their pain the same way that the generation before them did, and they'll start justifying it. Then you have a whole lineage in bondage, doing the same things and expecting a different result, and think that they can actually live the way. And that's what I'm saying. The poison gets poured into each generation, and it like rust on a car. It just keeps growing and growing till the whole family's poisoned in their mind and in their heart, and none of them are living it correctly. That's not God's will for anybody's life. But if you know that something didn't work for a generation before you, why would you repeat it? And then someone to tell you that you're destructive for your family. I'm not accountable for anybody's bad behaviors or malbehaviors or delusions or deceptions. I chose, I have visions and dreams of the end of the world. That's why I sanctified myself. It says, whom the God of this world has blinded people. Worldly people don't know spiritual things. Some of them don't even believe it's occurring that I speak to. Maybe that's happening to you, not me. I'm like, well, you're not living in the world I'm living in? Where are you at? He says they will be conducting business as usual, marrying, giving in marriage, not knowing what time or seasons is, not knowing that we're in the prophetic time clock. And that's what the enemy wants. He wants you living and adhering to his worldly ways and not knowing. Satan's come down with great wrath. He even knows his time is short. He doesn't want us to know that because he wants to take you out. He's under his own delusion. If he's indwelled with darkness, he don't see the truth himself. He's not able to see anything, and he's not able to love you. Pharaoh has a hardened heart. Pharaoh let my people go. Pharaoh, gods of Egypt, dark rulers, those people they live for monetary things. Lying, greedy, dumb dogs. Their God is their belly, and it can never be filled. They name their streets and buildings after themselves, thinking they will never see destruction. What's it profit a person to gain the world and lose their soul? So those are your blasphemers, that the Pharisees or whatever. The Lord openly rebuked them. Why wouldn't I? And they think I don't see their spirit on them. I see the spirit, you see the flesh. That's why you can't deceive God's people that have the spirit of truth in them. One, if you just have logic in your mind, a sound mind, you'll see their behaviors. Their vindictiveness, their cunningness. And that's not anything the Lord would require you to become what he created you to be. Here, I'll give you life, now go destroy everybody around you. That's blasphemy. That's the unpardonable sin. If you're doing something that you know is wrong, and you're still doing it for some kind of reward that the enemy's lying to you about, because the enemy doesn't have power over life or death. He does not have any power but the power you're giving him, or the belief or the disbelief you're under, or the delusion or the deception. That's the power he has over you, over your mind. Satan's target is your mind. Don't be delusional. I say sanctified. Satan can't dwell in a holy vessel, nor will I ever live in his kingdom again. I will never be put under a slave to nothing. I'm in this world, not of it. I'll never date again. I'll never sin again. I haven't in a very long time. And everybody knows I live for the Lord. And I'm not changing my mind about that. I've endured so many things already. I'm not giving up now. I have nothing to lose. I don't attach to anything in this world. I don't have a lot of monetary things. And nor do I want them. People with wealth are pierced with many sorrows and will fall away from faith because they're living for the monetary things, ego, pride, vanities of life. Love not the world, or the love of the Father is not into you. This world can have whatever I have, but they can't take my dignity, and they can't take my serving the Lord away from me. Not ever going to happen. And if they believe that they have to be vindictive or cunning to somebody to gain what the Lord created them to gain, that's a delusion in itself. And you're showing how your next generation, where's everybody going to live if everybody's promoting evil in the world? What's going to be sustainable in this world? Who's going to be safe from crime and violence and hatred? Do you want your child to grow up in that kind of environment? Is that what you're condoning and promoting?